Well, welcome everybody, and thank you for joining us again. So again, my name is Dan Powers at Champion Solutions Group, and based on some of the other conversations that we've had in the past few weeks, we wanted to present to you a particular solution with ExtraHop. Really, what we're looking at is making sense of all the different topics that we talked about and all of your equipment and network data on the wire with ExtraHop. Now, before we jump right into that, we do want to review some of the topics that we talked about and North Acme's objectives. For example, we know you're not looking for another tool. You have plenty of them, just like a lot of folks do. We're really trying to look at how do we use our tools better, or how can we replace some of these tools with something a little more efficient. Another common thread we have with a lot of folks today is doing more with less, meaning staff wise, right? Uh, Common trend: security analysts extremely hard to find. They cost a lot of money. Folks we've seen that can get someone in place for a little while, get some experience, and they could, let's be honest, they can go down the street and probably get more money. So difficult to do. Um, and we need better or more complete visibility, right? So again, with a changing environment, moving to the cloud, expanding, you guys are acquiring more companies. Is you're asked to do more with less staff. How do you do that? Do we continue to rely on the same tools we had before? Is there a better way to do it? So, common thread that we see with a lot of folks. Next, of course, we understand you have multiple remote sites, two major data centers, which is kind of an active passive. Most of the stuff coming out of one data center, the other one, a few apps run out of there, but it's kind of a passive active. And there's some ideas you might have for data center consolidation. A huge concern: 20 plus smaller remote offices. Part of this is acquisitions that you've recently made, which brings up its own issue of, hey, what are they running out there? What type of tools? How are they working? How do we consolidate their infrastructure into ours, right? So another common thing that goes back to that whole visibility, not just on users, devices, and so forth, but how are the applications working? Are these secure? How things work in general. And of course, moving ahead, we had mentioned you have an Office 365 objective that you're currently underway, and security is a huge concern as you move more things into the cloud. AWS, Azure, running some AD in the Azure content and so forth. So these are some of the topics we had talked about previously, and I just wanted to make sure we're still all on the same page. And now, why are we introducing this idea of this tool called ExtraHop to you? So we good from there? All right, we can keep moving on. Thank you. So at this point, let's take a look at North Acme as it exists today and some of the things that we have talked about this last couple of weeks. A huge part of things that you brought up to us was that visibility of where you are today, some of the initiatives going on, that cloud infrastructure that looks a little scary. When I put stuff in AWS or Azure, how do I gain visibility into this environment? We also have your two data centers that we talked about. This is where the core information, core servers that you have exist today, your core applications. We have to get complete visibility into this. And another huge thing you would mention is those 20 plus and growing remote locations, right? What is actually happening out there, even all the way down from an asset standpoint? What type of applications are running? How are these users from a performance and from a security perspective? Also, very interested in voice over IP, the IoT, Internet of Things, and again, going back to that asset management is a huge concern at these remote locations. Back at the data center, some of the key applications that you had spoke of and we had talked about. We talked about your Citrix environment. You have to rely on that. You have a lot of databases, a lot of information in your databases as well that you need better visibility into, and an SAP application. A lot of people are using that, kind of runs the core of your business. So we got to get a good set of visibility into there. Let's not also forget, and I'll put it up here at the cloud side, is that Office 365 initiative you going on. As you move the data from on-premise out to the cloud, is it still performing well? Are people still getting access to what they need? How are they using this? And of course, since you move a lot of files that have some sensitive data in it, is it also secure? Next thing we want to talk about is some of the existing tools you have in place. The Netscope, the SolarWinds, SACM, and QRadar are some of the biggest ones we talked about. We want to keep those in mind because it's a current investment. Some of these tools you've had for quite a while, and you just keep throwing more money at them, and they expand as your environment expands. And in some cases, ExtraHop can replace or augment, especially in the case of the SIM. We can certainly, what I like to call turbocharging your SIM, offering a lot of greater data into it to get more value out of it. So, how does all this work? Well, what we're going to look at next is bringing in the ExtraHop appliance. And in this case, what this is the ExtraHop Discovery appliance or platform. It's a very unique platform. It actually connects passively to your network, so it's not in line. There's no agents to deploy. It can be set up very quickly, and it can take a span or mirror port from your network at 100 gigabits line speed, even on encrypted traffic, and be able to reassemble the communications from the cloud environment, from your data centers, from your remote sites. And this is going to be metrics, application metrics, security information, user metrics, and so forth. And the unique thing about this, it does it at line speed, as again I mentioned, at 100 gigabits per second. It will auto discover all of these devices. So, going back to your idea of that asset management, something's on the wire, we're going to see it. Not only does it discover it, but it's also going to classify these devices. Is it a server above and beyond just a Windows 2000 server running? But if it's serving up HTTP traffic, it's going to be an HTTP server. If it's serving up database traffic, it's going to be a database server. So it can auto classify this stuff. And this addresses some of those issues that we talked about with your SolarWinds folks, where they have to know that something's coming online. They have to deploy the proper agents. They have to configure an agent for every different application on it. And they have to do a lot of manual work to start getting data out of that tool set to be useful to you. ExtraHop is going to do this automatically. So there's no human intervention on this side. So a huge feature on that from a time saving standpoint. So keep this in mind when we get into the demo. I'm going to show you this in real time on your own network, how this actually works. By basically taking all of those packets and network traffic, recreating every TCP conversation from layer 2 all the way up to layer 7, and giving us a full, complete picture of the devices and applications running on there. Another very unique thing is it does this at line speed. It doesn't store the data and apply these things later. It actually does over 5,000 metrics, over 50 protocols at line speed of all that network data. At the end, what that can produce to us is the network as a whole of how it's working, and we can start seeing your applications as well. For an example, your database, your Citrix information, all these core applications that you're running for your business, we're going to be able to see in real time all of these metrics and run all of these different tool sets and an analysis to figure out how things are performing from a performance standpoint and also from a security standpoint. It's very unique on how ExtraHop can do this. So that reassemble of all those conversations takes all of that fragmented data and network packets moving and creates what we call wired data. That wired data then is showing us and being able to index and view your network and all of your applications at that lower level, TCP 2 to 4, and obviously at that higher level. And again, keep in mind we do this, or ExtraHop can do this, and it can scale quite well at 100 megabits per second, even if your traffic is encrypted, and it can de-encrypt that SSL traffic. As we know, more and more people are running SSL from east to west, and it's not just sufficient to just see the data going across and not understand what's inside of those packets. From a security aspect and performance as well, we really need to be able to open up those packets and inspect the content and the payload to really feel secure in our environment. ExtraHop is able to do this at line speed. So now that I have this information on the Explorer device, which is where it all sits and resides, this gives me the capability to do Google-like searches in the Elasticsearch of the data that we have there, those raw metrics, if you will. I do this in real time. And the capability here, which we're going to show you in the demo, is how quickly we can pivot around data, whether it's a device, whether it's an application, a protocol, or a user. And I'll show you in the demo how with just a few simple clicks, we can detect something, we can drill in to see the servers that's involved. We can see right down to the application, what users it's affecting, and even a deeper dive into the application itself. For an example, web transactions that are throwing errors, right down to the URI. And if you have a requirement for it, we could also from there jump right down to the raw packets. The ExtraHop appliance has the capability of capturing the raw packets for empirical evidence. This is usually about a 24-hour look back. Multiple use cases for this could be forensics. worst case something happens and you need to prove it. You have the raw packet capture, which you can empirically show this is what happened. Here's who was involved. I see it on the network. I see it on the wire. There's no running away from this. It's like being in a court of law and having your fingerprints on the gun. It's really something you can't deny. It's empirical evidence. Just as a note, that raw packet capture is optional. It is another appliance, and it's called the trace appliance. So this is all well and good, but what other features? Where do we go from here, right? Are we going to be looking at this screen 24/7? Well, the ExtraHop Reveal X offers this cloud machine learning, which offers you real-time detections. So this is happening whether you're looking at the console or not. It uses behavior anomalies and unsupervised machine learning to throw out to you, whether from a performance or a security side, things going on in your network that are abnormal. Perfect example, user on a laptop normally doesn't do a lot of SIFS transactions or does X many during a week. Here's a trend. And all of a sudden they're starting to download or move a lot of files or encrypt files, if you will, in case of ransomware. Real-time detections are going to fire off and alert you, can even be forwarded to a SIM, email, and all these good things, but it's going to alert you regardless if you're looking at the console or not. So this is huge. Our ExtraHop does this because it's going to then provide you with a guided set of steps to go look at what is going on in your environment. This is very unique to ExtraHop, where a lot of other tools may alert you, but then just let you go figure out what's going on in your environment. We're going to see from the demo that ExtraHop is going to give you this guided investigation. The alert itself is going to come up with information of what's going on. It's also going to show you the server and the devices and the applications that are within this anomaly or this alert. And it's going to allow you to do a guided investigation, basically handing you some steps to go perform to figure out what to do next. Another thing I want to point out here is that these detections are not something that you have to set up. It's automated. And also that information that you're sending up to the machine learning in ExtraHop does not contain sensitive information about your environment. There's no IP addresses, host names, and so forth. It's really some of the raw metrics just out of the ExtraHop Discovery appliance itself that gets sent up to the ExtraHop cloud. So just from that sense, you're not sending data out to ExtraHop that is private, if you will. And these detections are actually built into the product. It's nothing you have to set up. We can also do your own triggers, but we can get into that later. From a standpoint, as I said, you get that guided investigation. Now, because we have that Google-like search capabilities, made sense of all that network raw data, which we turned into wire data, we can very quickly, in a few clicks, figure out, okay, who's involved in this? What is exactly happening in this environment? What's the cause? What are the systems being affected? You can do this in a matter of clicks, which saves massive amount of time. And again, if you needed to, you can get right down to the packet layer. That's your empirical evidence. You're going into the war room. Here's what happened. Why do you think it did? It's not because I got an alert from a tool. I have the raw packets that told me exactly what happened, when, who was affected, and who was the culprits or who did it, malicious or not. This is the power that ExtraHop brings to you. So now that we understand kind of how that works, let's look at what North Acme would be like tomorrow with this solution in place. So first of all, we talked about those first main pillars that ExtraHop kind of stands itself on. First one we talked about, visibility, being able to see everything going on everywhere in your organization, going to real-time detections, right? So this is at line speed. This is not searching through logs and trying to figure out what's going on. And also that guided investigations. So again, instead of just throwing you alert and leaving the onus on your team to go start sifting through logs and looking at different dashboards to figure out what's going on, ExtraHop is going to give you a guided investigation kind of on a silver platter that says, here's the steps you need to go do. And you can really take anybody with a short amount of time to be able to walk through these guided investigations. From a security perspective, you don't need 10 years of a security experience to do this. And I'm going to prove that to you when we get into the demo here shortly. So what does that mean? Let's look at it from two perspectives. From your security side, we're going to be able to give you that east-west detection. We're also going to be able to do something unique, which is looking at hygiene, making your team a little more proactive. And I'll show you this in the demo where we start looking at all your SSL transactions, your certificates. Are they, going to expire soon? Are you using wildcard certificates? All of these type things ExtraHop provides to you as soon as it starts getting that wire data, and it helps you make better hygiene from a security standpoint, be more proactive. As you're building out your SOC, ExtraHop will end up being one of the main tools you're going to look at. And as we also mentioned, because it also has that application performance metrics, because we see all of those conversations from layer 2 to 7, we're also going to be able to understand where we can do some tool consolidation, right? Where maybe some investments you've had over the years are tools that were great 10 years ago, maybe aren't quite cutting the bill today. And we can see where we can make some improvements on that. From a network ops standpoint, performance, if you will, because ExtraHop is seeing all of this data, we're going to also be able to leverage this security tool, if you will, to also help you with your data center transformations. We know what's going on. We know how it's talking to the cloud. As you move stuff to the cloud, how well is it performing versus when it was on site type of thing. It's going to help you with your current acquisitions mergers as you're bringing new companies on board. What devices do they have? What applications do they have? How are they working? How are you going to make those app modernizations, if you will? And what we noticed in a lot of our customers is that traditional knock and SOC, which were separate, knock really looking at performance, keeping things up and running. SOC was really looking at everything from a security perspective. How do we make things more secure? They weren't, not that they didn't care about performance, but it wasn't their main goal. But as we've all today, again, going on to that idea of doing more with less staff wise, is we wear multiple hats. Having your knock and SOC teams looking at the same data set and being able to leverage that is going to make your teams much more productive and be able to work with each other. There's no more finger pointing in a room. Oh, it's a network issue. No, it's a database issue. No, it's a server issue. You're going to have empirical evidence. Everybody's going to be able to share that same data set to really understand what's going on, not look at finger pointing, but really looking at what is the problem and taking steps to fix that problem. This is what ExtraHop's going to give you, and I'm going to show you that in the demo here in just a minute. All right, does that make sense? Excellent. So let me now show you what we did in the presentation in the demo and prove this to you. All right, folks. So now that we're going to be jumping into the demo and we're going to show you all those things that our lovely PowerPoint did. And as you notice, this is the default view when we log into the ExtraHop RevealX platform, and it's kind of giving it from a security perspective. There's a lot going on in this screen, and we're definitely going to take a look at this. But to start with, I am going to digress slightly. And I'm going to come up here to the top and I'm going to move under the metric side of the house. Why I wanted to do this, because we can show you all these other detections and all these cool things, but I want to make sure everybody understands where we're getting this data and why it is a rich set of data. So as we had talked about, that visibility, right, into your environment. Once we set up the Discovery appliance or appliances in your network and we're spanning your network data, we're delivering the data to the ExtraHop appliance, ExtraHop is automatically going to go start finding all of the devices in your environment. And it's also, as we had mentioned, categorizing them, right? Perfect example up here, CIFS, Microsoft protocols, for sharing files and so forth. We know you have 17 servers, 27 clients out of this. We can forget about the detections at the moment, but just realize that the system is automatically finding, because it's protocol fluent, all of the network traffic, reassembling, as we had mentioned, layer 2 to layer 7, and it's classifying all of your systems constantly. So if you brought up, for an example, a new database server, we would automatically see it. It would automatically show up here. Any detections, triggers, anomalies would automatically be sent, regardless if you had logging on, like in the case of a SIM, regardless if we put an agent out there. Remember, it's agentless. ExtraHop is going to see this because it's looking at that network data. So if we go a little bit further down into the application side of the house, we can create some all activities. We can create our own active groupings there, but I'm kind of showing you from the device perspective. As we had mentioned, ExtraHop's going to see these different types of devices. If it sees a device from a MAC address only, we see that as the level 2. As soon as we start seeing some of those ARP requests, ExtraHop doesn't do DNS queries. It actually is inspecting those network packets. When we see that data, we're going to be able to identify it based on IP address and see it. And we can notice that these are going to start being your level 3 devices. We can figure out, hey, are they VMware, are they web servers, what's a fully qualified name? Again, don't do DNS polling. And we can even start figuring out based on the protocols, hey, what's the main service of this? Is it database, DNS server, web server, and so forth. It also will automatically break these into groups. Again, all devices, of course. We can see domain controllers. Why do we know that? Because they're talking Kerberos LDAP. We can see that they're Active Directory domain controllers. We understand gateways. This is a health group, so you can create your own groups, right? They can be dynamic or static. But even things of devices in the last 7 days, from a security aspect, this might be very nice to know. Being able to dice up your data, your clients, your assets, ExtraHop goes a long way in helping you map out what's going on in your network. And even from a user perspective, we can start seeing the user accounts, where they're logging into, what type of devices they're touching, and we can drill into any of these things and get a view of what's going on from here. So as you can see, very powerful. So I wanted to bring out that visibility before we even get into anything else, because nothing else kind of makes sense until everybody understands the power ExtraHop gives you from pure visibility standpoint. Okay, so from that, what I'm going to do is I am going to move back out to the overview side. So again, same type of idea. If you noticed, well, web servers, file servers, database, control servers, so forth. How does it do this? Well, just as I showed you from that metric standpoint, it's automatically seeing the protocols on the network, automatically classifying these systems, and automatically starts running those 5,000 plus analytics on the various protocols as we're doing this at line speed. So real quick, we'll do an overview here. This is kind of a great little dashboard. It's showing you based on your time frame, and just FYI, you can go back, you can look at trends, you can really go back. The Explorer device guarantees 30 days look back, so it's a lot of time. We can go back, look at trends, look at what happened in the past, and again, you can expand on this by adding more disk space to the box, but usually we look at a 30-minute interval, but I was just showing you you can go back in time and move around. But in our current time frame, what we're seeing is we have 54 total detections, and XHop is kind of looking at this with that machine learning, saying, well, we have some actions, which are some basic things to look at, some command and control, 1. Lateral movement, we're detecting 9. Again, this is all out of the box. We didn't have to do anything to set this up. Recon, and obviously worst part is we're getting to some exploits here, right? So we're pumping some PCAP data through here. So obviously, hopefully we wouldn't see stuff this bad in your environment from the get-go. But if we did, well, we know we have work to look at. But a couple cool things that we can see is from the action standpoint, we see crypto mining. We see there's some exfiltration going on, some ransomware, right? Obviously, the exfiltration and ransomware is going to be a higher risk level than crypto mining. Crypto mining may be a bad thing, but no one's stealing your data. They're stealing your CPU resources, but obviously exfiltration of your data or ransomware is obviously of higher concern. So ExtraHop by default is going to organize this based on some risk scores, and we can go look at. Okay, so what I kind of wanted to do here is give you this overview, and I'm going to walk through a couple more overviews before we come back here and actually do that threat hunting I talked about. So another aspect up here on the security side, we can click on the network side of this, right? So kind of a cool thing we're showing here is, hey, what are all your active devices? There's 0 change since the last interval, last time we looked at this, and I'm not seeing anything new. Kind of cool to understand that. Again, when people get down to that is, hey, the new devices, what do I have out there, who's connecting? The other thing I really kind of like here is this signal metrics, right? So it's kind of like a stock ticker to me. Hey, HTTP errors, by the way, it's up 6.2%. Well, why, right? A lot of these ones aren't major deviations. We expect deviations throughout today as users work, lunchtime, coming into work, and so forth. But a lot of these sometimes can jump out really, from hundreds or 1,000%. We know there's something wrong. That's an anomaly. So this is kind of cool to look at. The other idea is this page will constantly keep shifting. The really cool thing that I like about these are live network maps. They're not just some cool animated drawing. This is real traffic that's happening at the moment in your environment. And these lines are not, again, just animations. It's real database transaction that ExtraHop sees in real time. If you notice, this is DB activity. I can manually switch through this, which I'm going to now. If you don't, automatically it ExtraHop meaning will automatically shift that every few minutes just so you get a good look. But now we're looking at all SIFs activity, right? Microsoft sharing what's going on here. I can pivot and choose. I can click on any machine and go right to this from an overview. Obviously, we see that there was a detection here for potential ransomware, as we saw on the main page. I will drill into those in a minute, just kind of giving you a tour. But notice that when you see something with a circle around it, meaning that these things have a detection on it, right? So these guys over here are good, nothing going on that ExtraHop seeing out of the ordinary. This machine, for example, if we click on it because it's beaconing, we see multiple things. Again, more ransomware, SIFS data reads, right? Crypto mining. So all sorts of threats, if you will, are being detected out of the box here. We can drill into it. So incredibly powerful. But I'm going to keep moving along and just show you the demo. Then we're going to jump into some of those detections, which I'm sure you're all interested in looking at. From a perimeter standpoint, and again, this is just that default dashboards ExtraHop's kind of given us, is without any configuration on your side, it has some of those geomap data sets and it understands IP addresses, countries, and so forth. And we can do sticks taxis for data threats. But ExtraHop knows, hey, we have some suspicious inbound connections, actually 127 of them. And we're kind of seeing it in from here, this perspective. We're kind of seeing the nodes talking. Where are they talking to? This looks like a remote suspicious device. Same thing with outbound connections. So we're seeing it from an inbound and an outbound. So again, remember I talked about ExtraHop really focuses that east-west corridor. That's really where ExtraHop shines and where most of our folks have gaps. But because we see this network data from your environment, even out to the cloud, we can still look at that north and south traffic as well. And again, we kind of see that total traffic external from outbound. Again, because the stuff is coming through us from the core, we're getting a good data feed. We can detect this and outbound traffic, so we can see some of these trends. So again, I wanted to just walk over that to give you a cool idea. But let's go back from that security perspective and let's take a look at some of these things for an example. So maybe I want to come in here and say, okay, ransomware activity, this is it's something I want to investigate. So this is that guided investigation we talked about. We see alerts. A lot of tools can throw an alert at us. But what is ExtraHop doing a little bit different? Well, if I click on this, it's going to bring me these cards, if you will, these security cards. This is start of our guided investigation. So very quickly, we're jumping in here, and he's telling us, hey, there's possible ransomware has been detected on this device. He's telling you why. Clients read and wrote a large number of files for SMB/SIS traffic associated with known ransomware activity. So he's telling us what device it is. There's multiple things we can do from here. We notice that this is in progress. Looking at analysts is looking at it, lasting a few hours here. But a couple things that we can do right away, right? Just an activity map. This is going back to again some of those activity maps that I showed you before, where this is real time. This is showing me what's happening right now. Here's the box in question, and it's showing you all the devices it's talking to, even the protocols it's talking to. So again, mapping it out, who else is he talking to, who could be affected, kind of very powerful. I'm going to back out here a little bit, go back to this card, and I'm going to get back into the record. So with a couple clicks, right, I figured out, hey, who he's talking to, there's an issue with ransomware, and I'm going to click this records box. And pretty amazing, we're getting right down to some of these records that this box is doing. What is he doing? Notice he's doing, as it had mentioned, client IP address, right, of the device, the server he's talking to, and all of a sudden he's starting to do a bunch of these SMB transactions, these SIFs transactions, which he normally doesn't do. And we can see it right in this time frame here. And notice some of the key flags, for example, help decrypt my files, right? These are indicators of compromise, some of the things we would note going on here. Very suspicious. Notice a couple cool things. We mentioned that searching capabilities in ExtraHop. So let's say maybe I'm looking for only these things. So I could literally come in here and click, And notice from this perspective, I get a time frame. I kind of remove the noise of all those other logs. Maybe I'm trying to filter that out. And I'm just looking at, well, I know this is an issue. How many times did this happen in the last few minutes? I can do that incredibly quickly. And notice these things are happening up here, that in the extra hop side, very easy just to click and go back. I have that capability of just using simple mouse clicks to sift through tons and tons of data. And again, as you notice, there was over 309,000 records in this particular one. And I could even click here and say, well, only show me that the server is this particular device. Now, in this case, I already kind of had that here. Bad example. Let me go back and look at it from a client side and say, well, is there any other clients talking to this bad known actor? And let me just look at that. And if you notice, this dropped quite a bit from record size. So we notice I could even come here and group this and say, well, you know what? I want to look at this from a client side. Let's group all this. And the answer is no. This is all coming from one client. So pretty good at one point. Hey, I see some crypto, in this case, ransomware happening. Are there other clients affected by this? If there were, I'd see them listed here right now. So again, really quick enablement. Doesn't take a lot of skill to do this. You can learn how to navigate these things fairly quickly to understand the depth of a particular breach, if you will. So let's go back over to that view again, if we will. And let's pick on maybe another one of these issues. And I just thought crypto mining might be an interesting one, if you will. So for an example, this is showing us, with a simple click, crypto mining on the time frame. It's showing us here that, hey, this is filling out kind of all of these issues here, all right, at the top with command and control. There's two of them, two reconnaissance that ExtraHop is detecting, exploitation 15, lateral movement, and actions and objections, which is really what the crypto mining is falling into. But again, giving that idea of he's giving us a guided tour, if you will, or a guided way of investigating these things. I can come in here and say, okay, crypto mining has been detected. I see the machine physicians one. I can kind of walk down here because I drilled into crypto mining. What else is happening? Well, it's also happening on my web server as well. Interesting, right? We can see, hey, it's been lasting 2 hours. So I could drill into my web server to see who he's talking to, just like we did before. I could drill into that activity map to see other things he's talking about. ExtraHop's going to show me all the transactions happening. But really, probably what I want to do is jump right into the records here, right? And saying, okay, I'm looking at our web server, Dr. Puel, whatever this is. And we're noticing here, if we notice these little threat intelligence where these icons show up with these cameras, that's showing that this triggered something from threat intelligence. So real quick, I've been able to dive in from crypto mining. I'm seeing all these different types of transactions happening. Now I'm saying, okay, well, what's happening? The data here, we're seeing quite a bit of database transactions. Maybe I'm not interested in those. A lot of HTTP, DNS, CIFS, normal traffic. But a couple of things that are interesting to me is, well, we see this CVE vulnerability. So clicking on this, again, get rid of the noise. I can come in here and say, okay, I got rid of thousands of records down to one with a couple clicks. I can look at this threat intelligence feed and I could view the threat. And this is telling me, listen, there is known suspicious activity based on this IP address that this machine is talking to, and it's on a watch list. In this case, where we're talking to from the crypto mining standpoint. And I got quite a high confidence here of what's going on. So within a few clicks, I was able to see, okay, crypto mining, is it affecting other machines? How widespread is this? When did it happen? Which machine is involved? And where is this data going to? Maybe even my firewall might be blocking that outbound connectivity, but the crypto mining is still happening within my environment. So we can go back and remove that CV scoring here and go back to look at all the records, which you notice we jumped up to, almost 500,000 records that are being looked at from this perspective. And we can say, okay, what else do we want to look at here? So again, a couple viewpoints here. We can scroll. There's obviously a lot of data that's been put in here, and you can look at this multiple different ways, right? I actually like this view a little bit better. I think it's just easier to read. That's just me. Okay, but look at this. We're starting to see this URI going out to this handler Bravo with these kind of temp records, if you will. Very suspicious in my mind of what's going on here, right? Going back to that crypto mining side of the house. So a couple of things that I could do from this perspective is, so okay, well, you know what, I only want to look at the HTTP transactions which are going on. So right away I drop my records down to quite a bit. If you notice again over here, we have, well, based on the HTTP protocol, ExtraHop is very fluent in that, is we it breaks it down and it knows how many gets, post, options, all these fields. It also knows the status code happening on the website. So in this case, it's suspicious activity. We're not looking for a performance problem. And we also notice, hey, out of all of these HTTP records, ExtraHop is flagging to us that half of these, 56,000 of these, are suspicious. So notice up here, my device, I'm looking at the box I keyed off of, the web server, and I'm looking at excuse me, I should have said, let me change this. Let me get rid of this one and actually say false is true. That's what I meant to do. So 61,000 records that were being able to say, hey, filter all the other noise out. It's all good to have. Not don't care about it at the moment. I want to look at the false records. How fast ExtraHop does this is amazing, and we see that we're getting these. For the most part, the handler, right? These are pretty consistent here. The end of the file's changing, but the crypto mining's happening, and it's all beaconing off here with our threat intelligence. So very quickly did we go in and find this. This other icon here in the demo, sometimes this is not here. This would actually take us to the raw packets. It's just not here at the moment, which is fine. We can take a look at what raw packets would look like in a minute. But I could actually get down to the raw packets. So in the case of like crypto mining, for example, or excuse me, ransomware, we might have had some files that got ransomed off or got encrypted. Okay, how do we recover? We go to backup, we can figure it out. We obviously want to stop the ransomware from happening. But if we have that packet capture, we'd be able to go grab that PCAP, pull it off, run it through Wireshark, and actually restore our files and forget about paying the ransomware. And if we have a time, we'll walk through something like that. But I wanted to walk through that overview with you of how ExtraHop helps, how we can see, spike in SSH sessions. It's going to show me where all these things are happening. And based on these cards, it's giving us investigation steps. So again, this is ExtraHop's guided investigations. We can view the clients acting as potential hackers just by a click, and he's going to show us the machine that's doing this and the time frame, right? So ExtraHop's just not throwing out, hey, there's an issue, but it's helping you walk through your analysis walk through here. And you really don't have to be a 10-year seasoned security expert to do this. And again, going back to that idea of doing more with less, leveraging your current NOC folks that can actually do some security analytics. And again, if you wanted to see the records that were associated with this, boom, it's going to show you up right here. I did a handful of clicks. I'm seeing all these records in this time frame. Suspicious activity, I could click on 4. That click, I came down to look at this machine from a detection and can see the packets of what's going on. Who is the machine affected? The accounting laptop, his IP address, where it's actually going from a server side, what is actually happening here with the OpenSSH. And again, even that threat intelligence is telling us this is a known bad endpoint, this IP address. So we're having some issues with SSH here from this known bad entity. We were able to do that within a few clicks with that guided intelligence. And I know we're running short on time, so I wanted to drive into a couple other aspects of this. And what we're going to do is look at dashboards. Now, I'm going to look at some of the ExtraHop default dashboards that's in the demo environment. There's a lot of things which are called bundles, which allow you to create some very unique and cool dashboards. And hopefully we'll get a time to do this with you later, but it's very easy to do. ExtraHop has quite a bit on their site. Even customers and partners can create their own dashboards. And of course you can as well, right, to lay out what you want. But what I want to show you is from a performance standpoint, even from a network hygiene that we talked about in security. So instead of always being reactive, right? We have that capability of having threat intelligence. I can see, suspicious hosts that we even looked at some of those records with the command and control center, some of that ransomware stuff that we showed you a moment ago. But a couple other things I want to key in on here that we see, which is really unique, and clients find this great. Your SSL cipher suites, like we had talked about, even without decoding the SSL traffic, ExtraHop sees it. And what we can look at is, well, are you working with weak cipher suites. Who is actually doing it? And this is telling us, yes, quite a bit. We can drill right into the actual machines that are doing this by server. We can even see it from a client perspective. And if we keep kind of walking down here, we can also find when we've even expired some of our certificates, right? So this is showing us certificates that are in use in production with expired SSL certificates. This is just poor hygiene. It's just like not patching your environment. These things should be proactively taken care of. Most people have a hard time dealing with this, especially in larger environments. ExtraHop is going to show us this and help us deal with it. Same thing with wildcards certificates, right? Hey, should some of these even be in play here, right? And you can make exceptions or denote, yep, these are good. We do the Google double click. Well, maybe not. But you get the idea that we can do some really cool hygiene here. So you're not just looking at ExtraHop as a reaction and forensic system. It's also helping us with really good network hygiene as well, right? Giving us a lot of good overview here. Now, from a network standpoint, as I had mentioned, we're covering some of that stuff that the network does, that lower level. Hey, we're going to get a real good idea of what our traffic patterns are. You know, is it unicast, multicast? We get all that stuff that you would expect to see. A couple other cool things that we can get into a little bit later is zero windows. This is really leveraging ExtraHop to either exonerate the network or let everybody know the network's okay, right? Because let's face it, everybody points their finger at the network when something's wrong, and that's going to help us figure out, hey, is this a server problem, or and manifesting itself as a network problem, or what is it? As we said, we're protocol efficient. We're going to see all the different protocols in your environment and in real time lay them out and show you how they're performing and how much data we're moving and who's talking to who. So a lot of cool metrics that you would expect, even the lower level metrics and even multicast. What I wanted to jump into next is kind of, that activity side, if you will. And again, I'm not bringing up any specific dashboards. There's some really cool ones out there, but just using the default ones out of the box, right? So we have some alerts, which we saw before in some of that detections, and there's also some alerts you can set up. So there's the idea of detections that come out of the ExtraHop cloud, and you can also set your own thresholds and alerts, right? Fire them off to a SIM or so forth. So a little bit different of how they work. But what I kind of wanted to look at is just out of the box, hey, all the HTTP activity that's happening in your environment. Here's a very high level framework of it. Responses, I could come in here and drill in by client server status code and URI, which we're going to do for in a minute. But notice it's going to start doing this for all of your different protocols, all of the different things that run most core businesses. Databases. We're able to look down into databases, understand how the round trip time is working, how the server is working in general, and even drill down into issues without an agent on the database server without profiling it. This is huge. And for an example, we notice there's a huge increase in responses along with some errors here. This might be something that I'd want to go look at. So let's just say I wanted to do that. From the error side, I can drill down by client, the error, the method, server, or the user. What I'm going to look at here, maybe I'm going to say, well, I'm interested in the server side. What servers are giving me some issues? So here's my database servers. If you notice, I'm now in here looking at this and I'm looking at errors. Well, this guy's got quite a bit. My SQL 1 machine. And again, this is SQL. Wouldn't matter if it was DB2, Postgres, or so forth. ExtraHop just sees this as a database server. Okay, so I see what's going on here, right? Now, maybe I want to go drill in and take a look at these records on this server and say, well, what exactly is happening here? What's going wrong? And notice over here, I keyed off that from where I started in ExtraHop and looking at this particular server, which is giving me the most examples. I could group this by the client. Is that the only client getting this error? Well, I can come up here and say, you know what? Group this information by the client. And no, it's not. So obviously, I probably have two front end web servers that are calling the database in the back end, right? Oh, this could be alarming for my customers. The Web 2 server is getting most of these, but Web 1 is as well. So let's go back and remove that and say, well, what exactly is going on here with these errors? And we noticed here we have a couple different types of errors that are happening. This is showing us right away what it is. W2example.com is blocked because too many connection errors, right? Okay, we have an issue here. We could drill into this, just this one, and finding exactly what's going on, and we realize there's just too many errors connections, and we need to do a flush host on this. So, and it's consistent. We're seeing this, and there's 138,000 records in a very short period of time. Now we know from a performance standpoint, so we're hitting errors. What exactly is it? A couple clicks later, I'm looking at some records here. This is empirical evidence of what's going on. I don't need an agent on the box. I don't need a client call me, tell me something's slow, and start looking at logs to figure this out. I have empirical evidence of exactly what the error is in this particular case. So I wanted to do that because I thought that was very interesting. The other thing I wanted to do is show you a quick power here of some of these saved record queries, and then I know time's running out, so we'll stop after that. But view database transactions, right? So this one is looking at the accountant system, anything in the select statement, and from a particular client address. What I'm going to do is I'm going to remove some of these things, right? And even from this, and I'm just going to go back to looking at just database transactions here. And if you notice, again, processing time, right? Hey, these are pretty good processing times. What I'm going to do is with a simple click, I'm going to say equals this, and I'm going to go edit it. And I'm going to come up here under edit and say, you know what? In my environment, any database transaction that's running over greater than that 50 milliseconds, I'm just curious, what's going on? How many do I see here? Wow, we're seeing quite a few. So right away, 3,379 records. In my mind, if I could even sort this from the processing time of who's the worst, hey, unless somebody's doing a database backup or something, maybe what I'm seeing here is some issues where I need to do some SQL tuning. This is incredibly powerful because think about it. There's no agent on the box. We're not impacting your database server in any way whatsoever. We're not doing profiling, and I can actually see the SQL statements that are being generated here and how they're working, right? And even again down to the errors that we see over here. So I was just showing you from an example how incredibly rich the ExtraHop data set can be. It'll do this for all various protocols. I could spend the next 2 hours doing a demo for you, but I'm hoping you're feeling the power of ExtraHop, what we can do with a few simple clicks, whether it's from a security standpoint, whether it's for a NetOps network engineer person, and having those two teams use the same set of data is going to help you resolve issues incredibly that much faster. So again, I appreciate your time. Glad we got a little capabilities to walk through and do some of these things. And thank you very much for spending time with us today.